Hey folks, winter might have the garden buried in snow, but that doesn't mean you have to stop growing things. In fact, holds up a leaf cutting, you can propagate a whole bunch of plants right from leaf cutting 7 in the colder months. Whether you're tight on space, on a budget, or just love a good plant experiment, leaf cuttings are a super satisfying way to expand your indoor jungle without even stepping outside. So grab your scissors, maybe a warm drink, and let's go through 13 awesome plants you can grow from leaf cuttings this winter. You might be surprised how easy and fun it actually is. From succulents to houseplants, we've got some solid picks to keep your green thumb busy until spring rolls back around. All right, let's get into it. Coleus is hands down one of the easiest plants to propagate from a leaf cutting, especially in winter. Just take a healthy stem yep, not just the leaf. Make sure there's a bit of the stem attached stand. Snip it right below a node. That's the little bump where the leaves meet the stem. Pop off the bottom leaves, stick that cutting in a glass of water, and place it somewhere warm with decent light like a kitchen window, or even under a grow light if you've got one. Now, here's the cool part. Roots usually show up in just a week or two, and they look like these tiny white noodles starting to spread. Once those roots are about an inch or two long, I like to move the cutting into some moist potting soil. Keep it a little humid at first, like you can cover it loosely with a plastic bag or something just to trap in that moisture. In a few more weeks, bam, you've got yourself a brand new Coleus plant. Bright colors, super low maintenance, and it makes a great gift too if you've got plant-loving friends. Seriously, it's one of the most forgiving plants to start with if you're new to leaf cuttings. Petunias might surprise you, but yeah, you can totally grow them from cuttings in winter. Just snip a non-flowering stem about 4 to 6 inches long, make sure it's healthy and not woody. Pinch off the flowers and lower leaves so the plant puts its energy into rooting instead of blooming. Dip the cut end in a bit of rooting hormone if you've got it, totally optional, but it helps. Then stick it in a moist mix of peat and perlite or even just a seed starting mix. I like using those little plastic cups with holes poked in the bottom. They're cheap and do the trick. Keep the soil damp, not soggy, and cover the cup loosely with a plastic dome or bag to hold in humidity. Light's key here. Set them near a bright window or under a grow light. In a couple of weeks, give the stem a gentle tug if there's resistance. Roots are forming. Once they're rooted and putting out new growth, move them into a pot and treat it like a mature plant. You'll have a head start on blooms when spring hits. And honestly, it's just fun watching them take off during a time when not much else is growing. Fuchsia's another great one to grow from cuttings in winter, and honestly, it's easier than most folks think. Look for a non-flowering tip about 3 to 5 inches long and cut just below a leaf node. Make sure to remove the lower leaves so you've got a clean stem, but leave a few up top. You can dip the bottom in rooting hormone if you want, but I've had decent luck without it too. Stick the cutting into a light, well-draining mix. Something like peat and perlite works great, and then give it a light mist. The key here is humidity. So cover the pot with a plastic bag or pop it in a mini greenhouse if you've got one. Bright, indirect light is perfect. Don't go putting it in full sun or under a blasting. Grow light or it'll crisp up. In a couple of weeks, you should see new leaves starting to push out, and that's your sign it's rooting. Water lightly, don't drown it, and be patient. It's a little slower than some other plants, but totally worth it. Once it's settled in, you'll have a healthy little fuchsia ready to bloom like crazy once the warmer weather rolls around. Impatiens are super easy to root from cuttings, and they actually do great indoors during winter. Just snip a stem about 4 inches long, make sure it's not flowering, and cut right below a node. Strip off the lower leaves, and if the top leaves are big, I usually snip them in half so the cutting doesn't lose too much moisture. Drop that cutting into a glass of water and place it somewhere warm with bright, indirect light. You'll be shocked how fast it roots sometimes in as little as 5 to 7 days. Little white roots start popping out. Once they're about an inch long, move the cutting into a pot with well-draining soil. Give it a light watering and keep it in a spot that's cozy and get some gentle sun. It's important to keep the humidity up at first. Either mist it regularly or loosely cover it with a plastic bag for a week or so. You'll know it's settled in once it starts pushing out new leaves. Geraniums are a classic, and honestly, one of the most satisfying plants to grow from cutting 7 in winter. Just take a healthy stem, about 4 to 6 inches long, and make sure it's got at least a couple of leaf nodes. Snip right below a node, remove the lower leaves, and if there's a flower bud on there, pinch it off, trust me. You want that energy going to roots, not blooms. Now here's the trick with geraniums. They like things a little dry. Let the cuttings sit out for a few hours, maybe even overnight, so the end can callus over. Then stick it into a gritty, well-draining soy-like cactus mix or regular potting soil with a bit of sand mixed in. No plastic bags over the top this time, just bright, indirect light and minimal watering, think moist but not soggy. Within a couple of weeks, you'll usually see some new growth pushing out from the top, which means roots are doing their thing. Once it's established, you've got a strong, hardy plant that'll be blooming like crazy when spring rolls in. And the best part? You can keep doing this and basically never have to buy another geranium again. Persian Shield is one of those plants that just looks wild-like. The deep purple shine is unreal and yeah, you can totally grow it from cuttings in winter. Take a stem about 4 to 5 inches long, snip it just below a node, and take off the lower leaves. The top ones you can leave, or trim them back a bit if they're big just, helps with moisture loss. I usually go the water propagation route with this one. Just drop the cutting in a glass of water and place it in a warm, bright spot, but not direct sun, or it'll get crispy. In a couple of weeks, you'll see roots starting to form, and once they're an inch or two long, you can pot it up in some light, well-draining soil. Keep it humid for the first week or so. Ist it or toss a clear plastic bag over the top, just not sealed. The cool part is, once it settles in, it starts growing pretty fast, even in winter. Just keep it away from drafts and don't overwater it. Likes moisture but hates soggy roots. By spring, you'll have this bold, tropical-looking plant that's a total head-turner, all from a little cutting on your windowsill. Sweet potato vine is one of those plants that just loves to root. It's almost too easy. Grab a vine that's not flowering, about 6 inches long, and snip it just below a node. Take off the lower leaves so you've got a clean stem, and then just drop it into a glass of water. That's seriously it. Stick the glass somewhere warm with decent light, like a sunny windowsill or under a grow light. In about a week, you'll start seeing these little white roots forming, and they grow fast. Once those roots are about 2 inches long, you can move the cutting into some potting soil. Just make sure the pot has good drainage. Keep it lightly watered and give it bright, indirect light, and it'll take off even in winter. If the air's dry, a little misting or a humidity tray doesn't hurt either. What's cool is, even if you've got zero gardening experience, this one almost always works. And by the time spring rolls around, you'll have this lush, trailing vine ready to spill out of a planter or hanging basket. Honestly, it's a fun one to share with friends too. Just snip, root, repeat. Vinca, or periwinkle, whatever you call it, it's a super tough little plant. And yeah, you can grow it from cuttings in winter without much hassle. Just find a healthy stem, 4 to 6 inches long, and cut right below a node. Strip off the bottom leaves so you've got a clean stem going into the soil, but leave a few up top. I like dipping the end in a bit of rooting hormone, helps things along, but if you don't have it, no big deal. Stick the cutting in some moist, well-draining potting mix and gently press the soil around it so it stands upright. Now here's the part, folks. Give it some humidity. I usually just cover the pot with a plastic bag or clear container, leave a little air gap, and set it somewhere warm with bright, indirect light. Don't bake it in the sun, though, or you'll cook the poor thing. Mist it every few days to keep things humid, and in a couple of weeks, you should see new growth starting. Once it's rooted, ease off the humidity and water like normal. It won't explode with flowers indoors in winter, but it'll stay green and happy and be ready to go once spring kicks in. Polka-Dot Plant's a fun one. It's got those crazy pink or white speckles, and it roots super easy from cuttings, even in the dead of winter. Just snip a stem about 4 inches long, right under a node, and pinch off the lower leaves so the stem's clean where it'll go in water or soil. I usually just toss mine in a jar of water, nothing fancy, and put it in a bright window. You'll see roots forming in a week or so, and once they're an inch or two long, you can pot it up. If you want to skip the water step, you can go straight into moist potting mix too. Just make sure to keep the humidity up, like with a plastic bag tent or misting every couple days. These guys like warmth and a little extra moisture, so don't let them dry out completely. You'll know it's working when new little leaves start showing up at the top. And the cool thing? You can pinch it back as it grows to keep it nice and bushy instead of leggy. It's such a cheerful little plant to have around when everything outside is gray and frozen. Rosemary can be a little picky, but if you give it what it wants, you can totally root cuttings indoors during winter. Start with a fresh, non-woody stem like 4 to 5 inches long and snip it just below a leaf node. Strip off the bottom leaves so the stem is bare on the lower half, and if you've got rooting hormone, dip it in rosemary, appreciates the extra help. I usually stick mine in a small pot with a sandy, well-draining mix-like half-potting soil, half perlite or sandand. Give it a light watering. Cover the whole thing with a clear plastic bag or dome to keep the humidity in, but make sure there's a little airflow so it doesn't get moldy. Place it in a bright spot, not full sun, just indirect light, and try to keep the temp around 65 to 70 degrees. It takes some patience, like it might be 3 to 4 weeks before roots show, but once you see new growth at the top, you're golden. At that point, you can ease off the humidity and treat it like a regular rosemary plant. Just don't. Overwater rosemary hates wet feet more than anything. It's a great herb to have around, and it smells amazing even when it's not doing much. Moss rose, or portulaca, is one of those low-key awesome plants that just loves sun and dry soil. And yeah, you can actually root it from cuttings in winter if you give it a little love. Grab a healthy stem that's not flowering, about 4 inches long, and cut it just below a leaf node. Strip off the lower leaves and let the cuttings sit out for a day or so to callus over super important with succulents like this so it doesn't rot. After that, just poke it into a small pot with sandy, well-draining soil. Something like cactus mix works great. Give it a light, misting, not a full soak, and keep it somewhere warm and bright, but not in direct sun until it roots. I don't bother with rooting hormone on this one. It usually does its thing naturally. You won't see much going on for a week or two, but then new growth will pop up if it's happy. Water it super lightly during this phase, like just enough to keep the soil from turning to dust. Once it's rooted, it'll grow slowly over winter, but take off once the light improves. By spring, you'll have a full tray of these bright, cheerful bloomers ready to go in your garden or window box. Pineapple sage is one of those herbs that smells amazing the second you touch it. And yeah, you can grow it from cuttings in winter pretty easily. Just take a cutting about 5 or 6 inches long from a healthy stem, ideally one that hasn't flowered yet. Snip right below a node and strip off the bottom leaves so you've got a clean stem to work with. I like dipping the end in rooting hormone, but even without it, it usually roots just fine. Stick it in a small pot with moist potting mix, something light that drains well, and gently press it in so it stands up straight. Cover it with a clear plastic bag to keep the humidity up, but make sure there's a little airflow or you'll get mold. Set it somewhere warm with bright, indirect light, not full sun yet. Keep the soil just barely, moist, don't drown it. After about 2 to 3 weeks, give it a gentle tug, and if there's resistance, congrats, it's rooted. Once it starts putting out new growth, take off the plastic cover and let it adjust to regular room humidity. It won't grow super fast in winter, but it'll hang in there and be ready to explode with those bright red flowers once spring rolls around. Texas Lantana's one tough plant, and yep, you can totally grow it from cuttings even in winter if you've got a sunny window and a little patience. First thing, find a semi-soft stem that hasn't flowered, about 5 inches long, and cut it just below a leaf node. Strip the lower leaves, and if you've got rooting hormone, dip the tippet. Helps with Lantana, since it can be a little slow to start. I usually stick the cutting in a small pot with well-draining soil. Something like cactus mix or a potting mix with added perlite works great. Give it a light watering and then cover it with a clear plastic bag or dome to keep in the humidity, but make sure there's a little airflow so it doesn't get funky. Place it in a bright spot. Lantana loves light, but skip the direct sun at first. It'll probably take a couple weeks before you see roots, maybe longer in the cooler months, so don't stress if it's slow. Once you see new growth at the top, that's your sign it's ready to come out of the humidity tent. Just ease it into normal conditions and don't overwater. Lantana hates wet feet. Before you know it, you'll have a fresh little plant ready to burst with those wild, fiery blooms once the warmer weather hits. All right, that's a wrap on 13 plants you can grow from leaf cuttings in winter. Pretty cool, right? You don't need a greenhouse or fancy setup, just a few cuttings, a warm spot, and a little patience. Whether you're doing it to save your favorites from frost or just want to multiply what you've got, this is such an easy way to keep your garden game going year-round. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up maybe subscribe if you're into this kind of thing. I'll be sharing more plant stuff soon. And hey, if you've got your own go-to plants for winter cuttings, drop them in the comments. I'm always down to try something new. Stay warm, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next one.